ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 6, Creation of the Universal Form. We are in the first section of this, Development of the Gigantic Universal Form. So, we are at text 6. Text 6. Hiraṇmaya sapurusha sahasra parivatsaran Andakosha uvasapsu sarvasattopabrihitah. Translation.
The gigantic virāṭ-puruṣa, known as Hiraṇmaya, lived for 1000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. Purport: After the Lord entered each and every universe as the Garbhodakshai Vishnu, half of the universe was filled with water. The cosmic manifestation of the planetary systems, outer space, etc., which are visible to us, is only one half of the complete universe. Before the manifestation takes place and after the entrance of the Vishnu within the universe, there is a period of 1000 celestial years. All the living entities injected within the womb of the Mahat Tattva are divided in all universes with the incarnation of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and all of them lie down with the Lord until Brahma is born. Brahma is the first living being within the universe, and from him all other demigods and living creatures are born. Manu is the original father of mankind, and therefore in Sanskrit, mankind is called Manushya. Humanity in different bodily qualities is distributed throughout the various planetary systems. Hare Krishna.
Hiraṇmaya sapurusha. Now the Purusha. Now which Purusha? This Purusha is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. We know there are three Purusha incarnation. There is Mahavishnu. Now Mahavishnu already has injected the living entities into Mahat Tattva, and different Brahmandas are being created from the body of Mahavishnu, and then Mahavishnu expand himself as Garbhodakshai Vishnu and is going to enter the universe. So here we are discussing about this Hiraṇmaya is the Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Lived for 1000 celestial years on the water of the universe, and all the living entities lay with him. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes that the Lord enters each and every universe as the Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So there is the spiritual creation, spiritual world. Corner of the spiritual world, there is a blackish cloud, which is material creation. So first there is expansion of Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu is lying, and from the body of the Mahavishnu, Yasyai Kanishvasita Kalam Athavalambya, we have the different Brahmandas. They are being thrown off in the seed form, and they are going to expand later from the body of Mahavishnu. And within now, Mahavishnu is expanding as Garbhodakshai Vishnu in each universe, right? And as the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enters the universe, half the universe is filled with the water, from which is the transcendental sweating of the Supreme Lord. Okay. So Prabhupada says here, what the cosmic manifestation or what we see as the planetary system outer space is just half of the complete universe, because the remaining half is filled with the water on which the Lord is residing there. Now, between this period, which period? After entrance of Vishnu within the universe and before the manifestation takes place, there is the period of 1000 celestial years. And in this is the period. Now, all the living entities are injected within the Mahat and the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu will divide these living entities across the universes, plural, all the universes. So, which are not only one universe, which ours is the smallest universe. Based on the activities and the desires of the living entity, the living entities will be distributed across the universes by Garbhodakshaya Vishnu in this 1000 celestial years. And after this, Lord Brahma will be born. And then there will be appearance of Manu, from who is the father of mankind, and therefore the word Manushya. And these Manushas, or the humanity, is across the planetary systems. So this is how the beautiful creation is taking place. Text 7. Savai Visvatrujam Garbho Devakarmatma Shaktiman Vibhabhaja Atmanatmanam Ekadha Dashadha Tridha. Translation.
The total energy of the Mahatattva in the form of gigantic virāṭ-puruṣa divided himself by himself into consciousness of the living entities, the life of activity, and self-identification, which are submitted into 1, 10, and 3 respectively. Purport. Consciousness is a sign of living entity or the soul. The existence of the soul is manifest in the form of consciousness called Jnana Shakti. The total consciousness is that of the gigantic Virāṭ-Rupa, and the same consciousness is exhibited in individual persons. The activity of consciousness is performed through the air of life, which is of 10 divisions. The airs of life are called Prana, Apana, Udana, Vyana, and Samana, and are also differently qualified as Naga, Kurma, Krukara, Devadatta, and Dhananjay. The consciousness of the soul becomes polluted by the material atmosphere, and thus various activities are exhibited in the false ego of bodily identification. These various activities are described in the Bhagavad Gita 2.41 as Bahushakha. Bahushakha hi anantasya buddhaya vyavasayina. The conditioned soul is bewildered into various activities for want of pure consciousness. In pure consciousness, the activity is one. The consciousness of the individual soul becomes one with the supreme consciousness when there is complete synthesis between the two. The monists believe that there is only one consciousness, whereas Sattvatas or the devotees believe that although there is undoubtedly one consciousness, there are one they are one because there is agreement. The individual consciousness is advised to dovetail with that supreme consciousness as instructed by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 18.66. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam praja. The individual soul, the individual consciousness, Arjuna, is advised to dovetail with the supreme consciousness and thus maintain his conscious purity. It is foolish to try to stop the activities of consciousness, but they can be purified when they are dotted with the Supreme. This consciousness is divided into 3 modes of self-identification according to the proportion of purity. Adhyatmika or self-identification with the body and mind, Adi Bhautika, or self-identification with the material products, and Adidevika, or self-identification as a servant of the Lord. Of the three, Adidevika, self-identification, is the beginning of the purity of consciousness in the pursuance of the desire of the Lord.
Yeah. Now the further creation. Savai Visvarujam Garbho. The total energy of the Mahat Tattva in the form of the gigantic virāṭ-puruṣa divided himself by himself, bo 2H capital there, into the consciousness of the living entity, which is one, Ekadha, life of activities, which is Dashadha, and the self-identification, which is Tridha. So, which is subsequently divided into 1, 10, and 3 respectively. Srila Prabhupada very beautifully explains what is this 1, 10, and 3. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the consciousness is the sign of living entity. So the existence of the soul is the manifested in the form of consciousness. Like what is the difference between dead body and living body? Dead body has chemicals, living body has chemicals. So dead body and the living body, the difference is consciousness, thinking, feeling, willing. These are the functions of consciousness, which is missing in the dead body. Why? Because the soul has left. And therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul, which is called as Jnana Shakti. And the total consciousness is the virāṭ-puruṣa. And this total consciousness is further subdivided. So the original consciousness is one. Even the living entity's consciousness is also the same consciousness. What is that? That is Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada says here, the monists believe that everything is one, but the sattvatas, devotees of the Lord, they know that undoubtedly the consciousness is one when it becomes in agreement with the Supreme Lord, which will be explained further in the next shloka, where Srila Prabhupada explains the difference between Swamsha and Vibhinnamsha. Right. So the living entities are Vibhinnamsha, but when their consciousness becomes one in interest with the Supreme Lord, that is called as Ekadha. Then there is a Dashadha. So what is Dashadha? Dashadha is the 10 divisions of the activities which are the heirs of the life, called as Prana, Apana, Udana, Vyana, Samana, Naga, Kurma, Krukara, Devadatta, and Dhananjaya. So now the pure living entity has come to the material atmosphere, and now there will be 3 types of identifications which will happen by the living entity, that we will see in the next paragraph. And because of this various identification, the living entity will start acting differently. Right? It's just like a sleeping child. You get into a garden and open his eyes, and all the playthings are already there in the garden. The swing is there, the seesaw is there, the cricket bat is there, badminton racket is there, and then kho playing is there, the skipping ropes is there. And as soon as the child opens, there is identification, and the child will run to a particular activity, which Bhagavad Gita says, Bahushakhahi anantascha buddhayo avyavasayinam. Because when the consciousness becomes separate from the Supreme Lord, there is material identification, and the material identification will lead to large varieties of activities based on the activities of the air of life, which are Dashadha. And then there are 3 types of identification. What are these 3 types of identification? Prabhupada says, this consciousness is further divided into 3 modes of self-identification according to the proportion of purity. There is Adhyatmika. Adhyatma means identification with the body and mind. Adhibhautika, identification with the material products. And Adhidaivika, identification as the servant of the Lord. So there is Adhyatmika. So this is the different meaning of the Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, and Adhidaivika. Generally, we have seen there are 3 types of miseries: Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika. So now this is the different connotation of these 3 words. These are 3 levels of consciousness. So Prabhupada says here that it is foolish to try to stop activities of the consciousness. No, consciousness means there will be activities. So we don't have to stop the activities. We have to purify our activities. This is very important. Just like this is where Bhagavad Gita begins. Arjuna wanted to stop the activity. Lord Krishna said, no, purify the war. Don't stop the war. War is required at that point of time. And of these three types of identification, Adi Daivika, or identification as the servant of the Lord, is the beginning of the purity in the pursuance of the desire of the Supreme. So this is how Ekadha, Dashadha, Tridha. One consciousness, 10 life years for activities, and 3 identifications, slowly leading again back to one consciousness. Text 8. एष हि अशेषात् सात्त्वानाम् आत्मांश परमात्मनः आद्यावतारो यत्रासौ भूतग्रामो विभाव्यते. Translation.
The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the Supersoul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. Purport: the Supreme Lord expands himself in two ways, by personal plenary expansions and separated minute expansion. The personal plenary expansions are Vishnu Tattvas, and the separate expansions are living entities. Since the living entities are very small, they are sometimes described as the marginal energy of the Lord. But the mystic yogis consider the living entities and the Supersoul Paramatma to be one and the same. It is, however, a minor point of controversy. After all, everything created rests on the gigantic virāṭ or universal form of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
So now there is this Ekadha is being further explained here. The gigantic universal form is first, expands himself in two ways. One is Paramatma and another is separated minute expansions. So there is a Swamsha and Vibhinnamsha. The monists consider both are same. Atma and Paramatma are same. Atma is just bound by Maya. And when he is released from Maya, he becomes Paramatma. He realizes he is Paramatma. But the devotees of the Lord, they argue, counter Prabhupada says, therefore there is a minor point of controversy here. They argue that if the portion of the Paramatma is bound by Maya, that means Maya is superior than Paramatma, which is not the case. And second is, you cannot have portion, you cannot fragment the Atma, nainam chindanti shastrani. So therefore Prabhupada says there is a minor point of controversy, but there are this Vishnu Tattva and Swamsha and Vibhinnamsha, Jiva Tattva. But when Jiva Tattva, the consciousness of Jiva Tattva becomes in desire one with the Supreme, not Jiva Tattva is merging with the Supreme, but the desires of the Jiva Tattva becomes one in the desire with the Supreme, then there is oneness of consciousness, Ekada is achieved there. Text 9. साध्यात्मसादिदैवस्य साधिभूत इति त्रिधा विराट प्राणो दशविध एकधा हृदयेन च. Translate.
The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1 in the sense that he is the body and the mind and the senses. He is the dynamic force for all movements by 10 kinds of life energy, and he is the one heart where life energy is generated. Purport: in Bhagavad Gita 7.4 to 5, 4 and 5, it is stated that the 8 elements earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego are all products of the Lord's inferior energy, whereas the living entities who are seen to utilize the inferior energy originally belong to the superior energy, the internal potency of the Lord. The 8 inferior energies work grossly and subtly, whereas the superior energy works as the central generating force. This is experienced in the human body. The gross elements, namely earth, etc., form the external gross body and are like a coat, whereas the subtle mind and false ego act like the inner clothing of the body. The movements of the body are first generated from the heart, and all the activities of the body are made possible by the senses, powered by the 10 kinds of the air within the body. The 10 kinds of air are described as follows. The main air passing through the nose is breathing is called prana. The air which passes through the rectum or evacuated bodily air is called apana. The air which adjusts the foodstuff within the stomach and which sometimes sounds as belching is called samana. The air which passes through the throat and the stoppage of which constitutes suffocation is called udana air, and the total air which circulates throughout the entire body is called the vyana air. Subtler than these 5 airs, there are others also, that which facilitates the opening of the eyes, mouth, etc. is called naga air, and air which increases appetite is called krikara air. The air which helps contraction is called kurma air. The air which helps relaxation of the opening of the opening the mouth wide, the in yawning is called devadatta air, and the air which helps sustenance is called dhananjaya air. All these airs are generated from the center of the heart, which is one only. This central energy is superior energy of the Lord, who is seated within the heart with the soul of the body, who acts under the guidance of the Lord. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 15.15 as follows. सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्तस्मृतिर्ज्ञानमापोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृद्वेदविदेव चाहं. The complete central force is generated from the heart of the Lord, by the Lord, who is seated there, who helps the conditioned soul in remembering and forgetting. The conditioned state is due to the soul's forgetfulness of his relationship of subordination to the Lord. One who wants to continue to forget the Lord is helped by the Lord to forget him birth after birth. But one who remembers him by dint of association with the devotee of the Lord is helped to remember him more and more. Thus, the conditioned soul can ultimately go back home, back to Godhead.
Yeah, it's a big purport. We'll see in 2 sections. Sadhyatma sadidevamscha sadibhuta iti tridha. The gigantic universal form is represented by 3, 10, and 1. So this theme of Ekadha, Dashadha, Tridha is continuing here. And Srila Prabhupada writes, there are 10 kinds of life energy, one heart where the life energy is generated. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that there are 2 types of energies. One is inferior energy, another is superior energy. Bhumi rapo analo vayu kham mano buddhirevacha. This is the inferior energy. And then parastasmat tu bhavanyo. But there is a superior energy which is superior to the matter, which is living entity. So material energy is the inferior energy, living entity is the superior energy, and the superior energy is manipulating the inferior energy, trying to enjoy the material world. Right. So he receives a body, which is the gross body. Gross body, Prabhupada says, is just like a coat, which can be seen from outside, which is made up of Pancha Mahabhut, Bhumi, Rapo, Anlo, Vayu, Kham. And then within the coat, one may be wearing inner wear like banyan. So one may not see banyan from outside, but he is wearing because it is inside the coat. That is the subtle body, which is made up of mind, intelligence, and ego. So thus there are 2 types of energy: inferior material energy, superior jiva shakti. And the inferior material energy also are further divided into 2: gross energy and the subtle energy. Gross energy gives the gross body, which can be seen and perceived, and the subtle energy will form a subtle body, which is made up of mind, intelligence, and ego. We cannot see the mind of people, but the mind of a person can be exhibited through his activities, which are performed by the gross body. Further, Srila Prabhupada says the movement of the body is first generated within the heart. Okay, so heart is the source of all the energy and the movement of the body will be, the energy will be coming from the heart. And this is also appreciated by the modern science. They say that there is a particular pulsating, the plus minus signal which comes on, positive negative signals comes from the region of the heart. And they say we don't know what is the source of this energy which is coming from the heart, but the energy is coming from the heart. But we know where this energy is coming from, because the soul is situated in the heart. And not only soul along with the super soul, they are situated in the heart, and that is where they are the source of this particular energy. And this energy, there are 10 kinds of air. And now Srila Prabhupada gives very detailed explanation of these 10 airs. Prana is the main air passing through the nose. When we are breathing, that is prana. The downward movement of the air is called as apana. Air which adjusts the footsteps within the stomach is called as samana. And then air which is coming in the form of within the throat and constitute the suffocation is called as udana. The total air circulating within throughout the body is called as vyana. And these are the 5 gross air. And within 5 gross air, there are subtle 5 airs. So then Prabhupada says the subtle airs are, there is the air which is responsible for opening the eyes, mouth, etc. That is called as a naga air. Then to increase one's appetite, there is what called as a krukara air. To help the contraction, that is called as a kurma air. And then for the relaxation of the opening of the mouth, that is yawning, it is called as a devadatta air. Like sometimes, somebody may yawn and he's unable to yawn also. So he has problem with the devadatta air. And air which helps the sustenance is called as dhananjaya air. So this is the dashadha, 10 types of airs that Srila Prabhupada explained in the previous previous purport. This is further explanation of these airs. Now all these airs, they are generated from the center of the heart. So once one question was asked to Srila Prabhupada, that between the brain dead and heart dead, currently there are 2 types of deaths. Which is recommended, which Shastra say that what is the real death? Where it is the brain death or the heart death? Heart dead. And Srila Prabhupada said it is always heart dead. Okay, because the heart is the region where the soul is situated and where the super soul is situated. And this is the further explanation that how heart is the, the origin of all the potency on all the airs which is circulating within the body. And this central energy is superior energy of the Lord. Why? Because the originator of this energy, that is soul, and originator of the soul, the super soul, they are both situated within the heart. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto. And the Paramatma is awarding mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Somebody wants to remember the Lord, the Paramatma will award the remembrance. Somebody wants to forget the Lord, the same Paramatma will award the forgetfulness, right? Because the living entity cannot even independently forget the Supreme Lord without sanction of the Lord. Lord only allows forgetfulness. Just like there is an atheist and he is arguing very hard how the God doesn't exist, where the intelligence is coming. The Lord only awards him intelligence to argue that, maybe put forward this argument and see, try to disprove me. So everything is coming from the Paramatma who is seated within the heart along with the living entity. Yeah, please continue.
This process of transcendental help by the Lord is described in Bhagavad Gita 10.10 as follows. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. Buddhi Yoga, process of self-realization with intelligence transcendental to the mind, devotional service can alone elevate one from the conditioned state of material entanglement in the cosmic construction. The conditioned state of the living entity is like that of a person who is within the depths of a huge mechanical arrangement. The mental speculators can reach the point of Buddhi Yoga after many lifetimes of speculation. But the intelligent person who begins from the platform of intelligence above the mind makes rapid progress in self-realization. Because the Buddhi Yoga process entails no fear of deterioration or retrogression at any time, it is the guaranteed path to self-realization as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2.40. The mental speculators cannot understand that the two birds, Shveta Upanishad, sitting in one tree are the soul and the supersoul. The individual soul eats the fruit of the tree, while the other bird does not eat the fruit but only observes the activities of the eating bird. Without attachment, the witnessing bird helps the fruit eating bird perform fruitful activities. One who cannot understand this difference between the soul and the supersoul or God and the living entities is certainly still in the entanglement of the cosmic machinery and thus must still await the time when he will be free from bondage.
Yeah.
Ji, you are not audible, bro.
And this process of help of the Supreme Lord to remember the Supreme Lord is explained in Bhagavad Gita. What is that process? Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam. The Supreme Lord gives the intelligence and the buddhi yoga is provided. So Prabhupada says here, if one is using one's mind, mental speculation, he will take a long time to reach the conclusion. Panthastu koti shata vatsara sampragamyo vayo rathapi manaso. So this is panthastu. Or, in Bhagavad Gita it is said, after many, many lifetime, bahunam janmanamante, jnanavan. But when one uses one's buddhi, and especially buddhi yoga, which is awarded by the Supreme Lord, one can very quickly come to realization of these truths. And then further Srila Prabhupada explains how in the tree of the body, there are two birds sitting. One bird is eating the fruit, another bird is witnessing the fruit eating bird. And the fruit eating bird is sometimes
not audible.
Can't hear you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
that one has to move towards Supersoul to get free from the entanglement. This is Ekadha. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you,
Hare
everyone.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Jai Shri
Just one question, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Like after this Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga comes, right, Prabhuji? So
Right.
there are people in this universe who still have some bad karma to go through. So they cannot go to Satya, they cannot be accommodated in Satya Yuga. So are they sent to different other universes where they can undergo that karma?
So the process of transformation from one yuga to another is a very prolonged process. Between every yuga cycle, like from Satya, Dwapar, Treta, Kali, and then again Satya, there is partial annihilation as well.
Yeah.
Because Kali Yuga, just imagine that so much of impurity will be there through Kali Yuga, and again to start Satya Yuga, we'll need annihilation. Okay. And certain living entities, so there are two personalities. Later we will see this, that how the Satya Yuga forms. So there are two personalities who are there right now in this world, who will be assisting Lord Kalki, who will appear in Sambhal. That same Sambhal we are talking in the news currently. Okay. So same Sambhala, this is the place where the Lord Kalki appears. And there is an entire process of, how the Satya Yuga, these two personalities, their names are also given in Bhagavatam. Later we'll come to that. They will establish Satya Yuga. And the Satya Yuga cycle will continue. So certain karma adjustments will be done by the Supreme that time. And those the pure living entities, very, very few in number, most will be annihilated by the Lord. And by that annihilation by the Lord, they will receive the Agyat Sukruti. And some of them will be born in Satya Yuga, and some of the existing living entities also will continue in Satya Yuga. And this is how the Satyuga will set into motion.
Okay. So whoever is there in a particular Kali Yuga, their sins will be annihilated and all of them will go to Satya Yuga, next cycle of
Yeah,
Satyuga.
again there will be, yes, again they will be given a chance.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.